the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
And welcome back to Talk Today. In case you are just tuning in, I'm Raymond Singh filling in for Mr. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. And now pleased to have in studio Mr. Adra Ocho from Adra. And this is in regards to the Honduras and Nicaragua relief efforts relating to the recent storms that they endured. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here. I am happy to be here to give a synopsis and overview of Adra, the Adventist Development and Relief Agency. Some historical information first, so people can understand who we are, what we are doing, and where we are going as an organization. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So talk to me a bit about where, because it's the first time I'm actually hearing about Adra myself. How long has Adra been around, and are they a Caribbean-based organization? Is this a global organization, or it's solely in Cayman?
Okay, well, first of all, Adra is an international organization. It's the humanitarian arm of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It was established in 1956, and they operated in approximately 118 countries now, at all continents. And their focus is on humanitarian needs. These needs vary according to what is needed within the community. As it relates to Adra Cayman was established in 1998, which is approximately quite a long time.
Long enough.
Right? Long enough for us.
Long enough.
Right. And how the organization operates. We do have an executive committee. We have an organizational structure, which is critical when people are looking at organizations. So we have been more a proactive organization instead of a reactive organization. We don't wait for things to happen, but we make sure that we are there before it happens, and we plan to meet those needs. Now, as it relates to Adra Cayman, I'd like to just give you some information, what we have been involved in from 98 to now.
Please, my next
Is
question
that
was
all right?
that was my next question. You took it out of it also.
Right.
Run with it.
Right, so Adra Cayman has been involved primarily in the area of disaster preparedness, disaster management. That's our primary focus. But we are not limited to that because there are other areas we consider. From a historical perspective, in 1998, Adra Cayman flew to Nicaragua and built a clinic for the people in that community. This is from Adra Cayman here. We also went to Honduras, and the area that we're talking about, it was Hurricane Mitch during that period of time.
Sure.
I went to Honduras also. There were other hurricanes, and Adra Cayman flew out and did some humanitarian efforts, refurbished schools, etc., from Cayman Islands.
So these are members of the Adventist Church here in Cayman who had gone over to do these efforts?
Yes, the members. As a matter of fact, we have approximately 200 volunteers, and I want to emphasize something here.
Wow.
In all our efforts, all that we do is volunteer work. No one is paid in Adra, including myself. I want to make that point clear because we believe that people comes before things. So that's why we volunteer. It's about a humanitarian approach. We also work very, very hard here during Hurricane Ivan with the government of the Cayman Islands through hazard management. We are a member of that voluntary agency responders, and we implement whatever is required by the government of the Cayman Islands through our volunteerism. We have worked in Paloma, That's Cayman, where we had a huge destruction. We sent over containers. We distributed. We have also supported Turks and Caicos during Maria. And even recently, Dorian last year, we shipped a 40-foot container to Bahamas, all done through Adra, and there was another ministry, Solid Rock Ministries, which supported us as another Adventist church in that aspect. But even to go further, recently we had Tropical Storm Eta. And while the storm was in progress, Adra volunteers were traveling to the centers. While Tropical Storm Eta, they went there just before the progression, when things were that's early in the morning, when they collected their kits from hazard management. So they were there. It was not extensive at that time, and they were there at the shelters. So we are really up to date when it comes to disaster management and dealing with people and their needs. Very, very important. And the history also looks at, we had various leaders during that era. Pastor Franklin Gars, Shirley Henry Gars, who did that fantastic job in pulling us together as relates to hurricane in Nicaragua, Puerto Cabeza, Hurricane Mitch, Benny Moore, Dean Evans, Carol Gold, Derek Tibbetts, and now I am here.
Quite a distinguished list of leaders you've had.
Yes.
So you've joined a nice panel of leaders and stepped in some big shoes.
Well, yeah, it's important because people sometimes think that an organization is built from the person who sits in the chair initially, but there is a foundation.
Absolutely.
Right, and we have now divided Cayman into various zones. So we have about 12 area coordinators, and that's why we are able to respond quickly to anything that happens.
You have 12 of your 200 volunteers in Cayman. You have 12 different zones.
Yes.
So are those 12 zones you mentioned? Are they also now involved with the emergency response units for hazard management? Is that how you're talking when you're responding? You're responding with coordinated efforts with hazard management.
Yes, that's what happens. So that is why we were able to get to the shelters.
Sure.
So you have a zone area coordinators. Under those area coordinators, we have what they call zone leaders. Under those zone leaders, we have volunteers.
Sure.
So for a hurricane shelter, you'll find an area coordinator, a zone leader, and volunteers to assist.
Interesting.
That's a structure.
It's a very well laid out structure. Now, from 98, you mentioned with the Cayman arm of Adra being in place, the primary focus, I believe you said, was for disaster preparedness and response following disaster. We talked about the 98 in Nicaragua and Honduras following Hurricane Mitch and the efforts you put there. You sent manpower and supplies over there?
Yes, we sent manpower, and we also had supplies.
Wow.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the government of Cayman Airways, we had a chartered flight to Nicaragua. And then from Managua, we traveled to the area that is, I think it was many hours on a vehicle straight. We had to meet with the chief and certain people to discuss how to understand culture. And that was critical. So we built, it took about 2 weeks, and we do have records of that. You'll soon be seeing some of our efforts on our website, which we have developed. It's coming out. In Honduras, we looked at schools, we looked at a clinic. Funds were raised in Cayman, and those folks actually went physically to provide labor and all that was needed.
So impressive. Cayman. Was there, we have to go to our commercial break. Before we go, was there any level of training they had to go through, or did they have to have any certain skill sets before you sent them over? So you think about like what Hurricane Mitch had done to that area following 98, talking about the flooding and all the damage that was done. You need some people that have some experience, I'm assuming, with disaster response and rebuilding and construction efforts and medical care and aftercare. And was there any level of training that was provided, or did you have volunteers that already had training through hazard management back then? I know we're also looking back quite a long ways.
Yes. Well, we had trained, as a matter of fact. All our volunteers have received basic training in terms of hazard management.
Okay.
We have also approximately, let's say, about nearly 30 to 40 shelter managers. They went from Adra that went through training with hazard management. Even recently, during our COVID response, we had over 100 volunteers that were trained because in our organization, we have health specialists, and their role is to look at these things and talk about mitigation of risk and how we manage. So we were well trained. And another thing is that some of the people who we have, they have skill sets already in construction. So we're looking at construction, all a variety of skill sets. So Adra is multitask.
I see that. Yes.
Even I think approximately, let's say 2 weeks ago, or I think about 4 weeks ago, we have started training people from Pan American Health Organization online. There is a specific certification that all ADRA members are going to be exposed to. We have started already. Deals with disaster management in 2020, not 1998, 2020. Very extensive program.
Wow.
So that's where we are. And so we are organized when it comes to how authentic are we.
I'm kind of shocked that I've never heard of Adra up until this moment, or this show right now. Yeah. And I feel a little ashamed of myself because you actually had quite a bit of structure here and a fair bit of involvement with a number of issues that have happened here in Cayman and across the Caribbean itself. On that note, let's go to our 1:15 commercial break. When we come back, we'll be discussing more about your current efforts with relating to the situation facing Nicaragua and Honduras right now. Back with more Talk Today right after this.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
And welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Raymond Singh, filling in for Mr. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks, and joined in studio today with Mr. Adra Ocho from Adra, which is the Adventist Development and Relief Agency. Agency, correct? Yes, agency.
Yes, that's correct.
Here discussing their organization and some of the efforts that they have invested throughout Cayman and throughout the Caribbean region since '98. However, the organization, if I remember correctly, has been around since 1956.
Yes.
With operation across the globe, 118 countries, very much involved here in the Caribbean with regards to disaster preparedness and follow-up recovery efforts. Some of the notables that you've been involved in that you've given the list here on air so far today was '98 with Hurricane Mitch, efforts with rebuilding efforts in Nicaragua and in Honduras, where you sent over volunteers as well as humanitarian aid supplies. For the efforts here itself domestically with Ivan, Paloma and the BRAC as well domestically, and then just past few years has been quite rough for the Caribbean region. So Turks and Caicos, you sent over supplies for the Bahamas and sent over supplies for there. So definitely been involved quite hands-on throughout the region. But now looking towards, we thankfully have been spared here in Cayman again this year and quite happy for that. But some of our neighbors have not been. Honduras and Nicaragua have taken a beating, to say the least. So what is the current plan for efforts for Honduras and Nicaragua right now?
Okay, well, our current plan now, we have made a decision to consider the best approach for both countries. First of all, we had contact with Adra Costa Rica, that is in charge of Nicaragua, Adra, even though we have a Adra director in Nicaragua. We also have an Adra director in Honduras. So we had discussions with them, and first of all, an evaluation was done as relates to needs, as relates to structure, as relates to the best approach, how we can do it. And we have decided, as it relates to Honduras, we are going to send cash to Honduras. As it relates there, that's what we are looking at. As it relates to Nicaragua, we are going to do both things. We are going to look at supplies, food supplies, and cash. So because of the nature and the structure, and we have experience, we have been to Nicaragua, so we are aware of, while money will help also, we also know that later on people will continue to need food, and it's a more basic needs that people are required at this time. So we are looking at a food drive. Very, very important. As a matter of fact, even today, we contacted them again. So we have regular discussions, weeks or 2 weeks. And those people have been very forthcoming in our expectations. All right. So we have a food drive that costs you less right now. That's one of the areas costs you less. We have a Nicaraguan group there that is collecting both funds and collecting food stuff. They have done an exceptional job. And they are part of Adra volunteers, so it's a controlled effort.
It's a controlled effort here. Okay. And they're accepting cash as well at the cost you less location.
Yes.
Okay. And then you also have other drop-off points for food and hygiene products.
Yes.
And where are those other drop-off points?
All right. The drop-off point is at Eastern Avenue, next to Banana's Restaurant. If you are traveling to Cook's Supermarket,
Sure.
On your right, there is a little sign there that we have put up, Nicaragua drop-off points.
Okay.
But I want to say something even further to the cash, which is
please.
critical. Adra, Cayman Islands have the same policies as Adra International. We have policies how you use people information when they donate. We have policies as it relates to ethical behavior during a disaster, because people are subjected to needs and people can become emotional and people can take advantage of that. So we are structured in such a manner that ethics and behavior and culture and belief must be respected. That's Adra point. Also in all Adventist churches throughout the Cayman Islands, and our conference president, Pastor Drackett, and myself, and also our logistic coordinators, Pastor Bob, and our committee of other, like our secretary and treasurer, we have been making appeals for funds, every Adventist church. And people within the Adventist church has given their funds every week. This is the second week, I think the third week. In addition to that, the Conference of Seventh-day Adventists have already put together $10,000 to be sent to both countries.
5,000 each or 10,000?
5,000 each to both countries. That is in addition to what we are collecting in the churches.
Okay.
What we are collecting in Nicaragua also, that is another sort of donation that has been given. And I want to reiterate this point. Every single cent, every dollar, every package that has been donated to Adra Cayman is going to those countries. Adra Cayman will not retain $1 for either, whether it's people who think administration. No. Whenever we do a project, the funds collected goes to that project because people have to trust you.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah,
And also we'll be getting reports from Nicaragua and Honduras as relates to how this has been distributed.
That was actually my next question. We have one call on the line, we'll go to it in 1 second, but when the money is sent to Nicaragua and Honduras, you're sending the money to the Adra locations there, and they will manage the distribution of those funds and those supplies?
Yes, that is how it is.
So it's not going to the government's area, it's going to another Adra organization within the region.
Yes.
Which shares your values on managing of funds and respect of people's property and rights.
Yes, and that's why, and we, as I said, based upon our experience,
Yep.
we do know our contacts are genuine, and also we do have information
That's fantastic.
from those contacts to manage effectively.
That's great. It's just a little reassurance for the community before they make their donations. They
Yeah.
understand how the money is being sent. We do have one caller on the line. Let's go to our caller. Good afternoon, caller. Thank you for calling Talk Today.
Good afternoon.
Sir, thank you for calling.
afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for calling Talk Today.
Yes. We're speaking about sending cash and concerning who's receiving this cash and how it's being spent.
Yes, sir.
Yes, knowing these countries from the past and the present, it's very hard to believe that all this money is going to be spent on people's needs concerning these disasters. And people may say that it's all being kept on record, what is being spent, and who is receiving the money. But it's very hard to believe that every dollar that is being sent to these countries, which are known to be not too honest when it comes to money. I mean, you all could say a pastor is receiving it. That doesn't mean that every cent that the pastor said was received was spent on people in need.
Caller, you're absolutely 100% correct. We were just addressing that to try to address that. As far as, and we'll ask Mr. Oakler here to address that in a minute, but do you have a solution on how you would suggest sending the cash and how we can ensure that the money that's sent over there is going into the community, or is there a different solution you could offer to that?
A solution?
Yes, sir.
My friend, there's so many people involved in sharing up this money
Sure.
that it's hard to find out the truth. Where again?
So is the solution then not to send cash and to send goods instead, that you know you're actually giving them supplies?
It would be better to send goods.
Okay, that's fair.
It would be better to send goods because sending cash, you could send it to a church in these countries. That doesn't mean that this money, this pastor at these churches in these countries is going to take this money and not keep nothing to himself.
Okay, caller, on that note, we do have a 1:30 to get ready for it. Thank you so much for the call, and I appreciate you raising the concern. It's a concern that's shared by many who make donations. Thank you very much for calling in today. So, Mr. Ocho, you heard the caller's concern. It's a very natural concern with anybody who's going to donate their cash. They want to ensure that that money is finding its way, and you've acknowledged none of this money is staying in Cayman. Nobody from the Adra Cayman offices are going to be receiving any penny of this. It's completely volunteer efforts. His concern, and rightfully so to some degree, is that once the cash does arrive into these other jurisdictions, whether Nicaragua or Honduras, that they're then managed on their end. And if the pastor on that end is also being 100% honest, which we expect them to be, that once that money starts trickling into the community, it starts running into its issues at that point. Is there anything you can offer to the community at this point to reassure them that what's happening on the fundraising efforts is going to find its way into the hands of those who need it?
Okay, and I think it's a genuine concern, and this is something that anytime you talk about transferring funds or anything like that, people are suspicious no matter where it goes.
Sure.
Right? So it's a genuine concern. Well, I can give the assurance that when we send funds, and this is our historical information, anywhere, in all our dealings, even when we went to Porto Cabeza, we sent funds there in 98. And when we arrived, all the funds were used for just what it was supposed to be used for. Even now, I can tell you that in Honduras, they have received some funds from Adra International, over $20,000. They have taken that money, Adra Honduras, and we have a report here right now. They have managing over 6,115 families and give them hygienic supplies. Also, all our accounts are audited by government in every Adra office. And the money is not going to a pastor. The pastor is in the office, but it's going to an organization. And the organization has a committee that decides and manages everything that is sent. We don't believe that giving to individuals, whether it's a pastor, just to say, we have sent some. No, we give to the organizational structure that is in place to manage those funds. As a matter of fact, if you go, I think recently we got some information from Adra Honduras, and they have structure, they had how much accounts, what money is there, where it has been. Right now, in Honduras, there are funds that have been sent. They are distributed to approximately 45 shelters and 7,300 individuals with food supplies. So it's not an individual. We don't deal with individuals.
Okay.
I am the director, and I cannot sit alone and decide that I'm going to keep funds. The church is structured where everybody benefits. And we do not ask a question which church you attend.
Sure.
What's your belief? It's not going to the Adventist church, it's going to the community. That's the function of Adra.
On that note, we do have to go to our 1:30 break. Before we go, can you please share with our listeners again how they can get in contact with you, or where they can make their donations, whether by product or by funds?
Okay, so if you want to donate, as I was getting a clear idea, at Eastern Avenue, we have a storage facility, or any Seventh-day Adventist church, you can drop off your products on Saturday morning. They will collect it, and we want to emphasize that we are not taking clothing, because that's a challenge. From our past experience, many times people have brought clothing and it's not usable, and we take weeks to kind of sort them out. Sure. We are looking at food for people to eat. Sure. My number is 327-6609. That's my personal cell number. You can connect me there. Or you can also call Alan Thompson, who is part of our group, 547-6024. 547-6024. And the account number you can distribute in Royal Bank. It's 500-623-4 at Royal Bank, Georgetown, Cayman Islands. Make all check payable to the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, and we are an NPO, so we have to be accountable to government also.
Absolutely. Ms. Adra, thank you so much for coming in. All the best with the collection efforts and for all the work you've done throughout the past, since '98, across the region. I'm sure there's many that are very grateful for the efforts that Adra has invested into this region. Thank you so much.